Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Karmic Gacha system in Modern Family World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 251, Feeling Blue. Edward POV. Morning, my dad greeted me as I walked into the living room wearing only a pair of shorts and a tank top. Mornin', I replied, yawning. I glanced out at the balcony through the broken window and saw it was empty. The sea breeze intruded the house from the gap in the wall, which Vader seemed to enjoy. She was lying down near the broken glass wall, curled into a C shape, sleeping silently there, enjoying the sun and the breeze at the same time. Oh yeah, your friend went home. His mom came to pick him up after seeing he was gone, my dad explained, knowing what I was looking for. Good. Was he yelled at? I asked as I scratched my stomach. Not by his dad. I don't know if he's scolded by his mother. From the looks of it, it doesn't seem that good for him. My dad replied with a wry smile. I'll ask her to be lenient on him. After all, he helped me a lot. Frankie walked to the sofa where my dad was sitting with a ledger in her hand. She got straight to the point and said, "There's over $30,000 worth of damages you've suffered." It must have been quite a party. It was. I replied jokingly. I yawned again as I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. My dad smirked and said, "I've had to stop myself from calling the hospital when you didn't wake up in the morning, but I checked your breathing and guessed it was fine." He checked his watch as he teased. "It's only noon." I replied. My dad smirked and said, "Still. It's a rare sight to see." I sipped my coffee and sighed with relief. Turning to my dad, I said, "I'm still a bit tired from last night." That's right, the hottest Halloween party in Hollywood. Teenagers edition, Pepper said dramatically as he walked in, waving his hand. He then scoffed, "Well, it might have been, if those roaches didn't break your window. Harvey already sent the damage cost to that General Beckman you were talking about." I shrugged and said, "It's fine. I'm kind of glad it ended early." My dad and Pepper exchanged a knowing glance, and I stood up from my seat. "I'm going to the lab. Call me when it's time for dinner." "Aren't you going to eat lunch?" My dad asked with disbelief. "I'm not hungry." "If I am, I will just eat some cereal in my lab," I replied, trying to walk away, when Pepper stopped me. "Wait." I turned to him, and he asked, "Are you sure you want to cancel the whole thing with the DoD?" "I'm sure. Just let Harvey handle it. Boo, by the way, don't go out alone or without protection for the next few days. Just in case they try to grab you and force you into something." I threatened him playfully. That sounds like a fun Saturday night. Pepper jokes. Frankie looked worried and said, "We should talk about enhancing the security." "You can deal with that. I won't interfere." I interjected. Before I could walk away, my dad asked something that made me stunned. "Ed, what do you think about suddenly having a younger brother?" I turned to my dad with a face full of surprise, and then turned to Frankie, before resting my eyes on her stomach. "You got Frankie pregnant?" "No." Frankie interjected quickly. "Not me. You got another girl pregnant?" I asked with an innocent face as I turned to my dad before smirking mischievously as I saw his bewildered face. "I haven't gotten any girls pregnant yet." I interjected my dad's words again. He scowled disdainfully and said, "Can you let me finish?" "Why, Frankie didn't let you finish last night?" I mocked again. Frankie was in disbelief and blurted, "I did." "Frankie dear, halt." Pepper intervened quickly. He glared at me and said, "Ed, listen to him." "All right. What is it?" I asked with a chuckle. My dad sighed and his mood fluctuated for a few times before he said, I might have another son. Speechless for a second, my mind raced to figure out the reason he said that. Stop. Before you go any further. Is this about that hairy kid you met yesterday? I interjected. My dad widened his eyes and said, "You know him?" I replied casually after breathing in relief, "Yeah." "Who did you think sent him to you?" "I already know that you're going to get all flustered when seeing his face. But don't worry, he is not your son. That was just something I had him say to mess with you." The short meeting with Harry Styles last night has been weighing on my dad's mind. He almost lost his sleep thinking about the possibility of the kid telling the truth. Even if he didn't see the kid's face clearly, there was a familiar feeling that he couldn't shake off. He even visited Mrs. Henderson early in the morning to meet the kid again, but she told him he was gone. "Where is he now?" my dad asked me. "Canada, I guess." "I'm not sure. I'll get back to you later," I replied dismissively. "Anything else?" I asked. Frankie said, "There's nothing else going on. Other than a few representatives from the government are desperate to meet you and change your mind. They reap what they sow, or in this case, tried to sow," I said casually before I waved them off. "I'll be busy for a few days. If you need me, just tell Robin." "What are you planning on doing now?" "Nothing treasonous, I hope?" Pepper asked while pretending to shudder. I chuckled and looked at him, but I didn't say anything and walked away, picking up the sleeping cat and placing her on my shoulder as I did. Pepper was stunned and he looked at my dad. "I have a bad feeling about this." My dad shrugged and said, "It's Ed. He won't do something impulsive." I walked to the same room Haley and Tara entered when they were searching for my lab. Then, I walked to the shelf on the deepest side of the room, and pulled on my decathlon trophy. A latch was unlocked, and a hidden door appeared. I entered my password and walked into my true lab as soon as the door was opened. Then, the door was closed again, separating me from the rest of reality. Bele 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 bele. My laptop rang with a den mushy sound effect as I received a call on my Skype. The sound disrupted my focus from the data and simulation I was running with my modified supercomputer. There were several monitor screens running at the same time inside the lab. One was playing the anime Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood. One was running the Pokemon game, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, while the other one was displaying some lab results for medications. I kicked the floor to roll my chair to the other table and picked up the call since it was ringing non-stop. "Hello there," I greeted. "General Kenobi." Max replied and made a lightsaber sound while holding a lollipop stick. It was only the stick since she had finished the candy. "So, were you just masturbating and accidentally called me?" I asked mockingly. Max grinned and replied, "How do you know?" "I meant to change the video, but my finger slipped." She cackled and I chuckled. "And to what do I owe the pleasure of seeing the great escapist, Max Black, today?" I asked. "My pleasure," Max replied with a dirty joke. She cackled a bit before asking, "How are you?" "Ah, did you miss me?" "Shut it." Max made a gesture for me to zip my mouth. "I'm only asking because I saw the news." "Ah, that. I'm fine. It'll blow over quickly," I replied. Max nodded and was silent for a while. I kept waiting for her to continue, and then I got confused. "Why do you keep staring at me, in silence?" I asked with confusion. Max smiled wryly and said, "I figured I should ask you more about your life, but then I realized I never had the experience, so I don't actually know what to do now." I chuckled and said, "It's fine, you can just be yourself." Phew. That took the pressure away. Max said mockingly, "Ah, Max. When are you coming here for Thanksgiving?" I asked. Max was confused. "I'm going there?" "Well, since I'm not coming here, wait, I can't even joke right now." "I'm going there?" "Yeah. Your family. Family gets together during Thanksgiving," I said casually. Max was speechless and her face blushed a bit. she shyly avoided my eyes and said, "Shut up. We have only known each other for 2 months. When you know, you know." I replied. "So sis, should I send the jet to pick you up? It's going to be hard to get tickets now." Max hesitated and said, "No. I have a shift on Thanksgiving." "At the Gap? Seriously, you chose to work at the Gap instead of working for the company?" I asked her disdainfully. Max was stunned at first, then she smirked. "Well, the Gap lets me steal stuff," Max replied jokingly. I smiled and rested my head on my palm while my elbow was on the table. Max said jokingly, "Wait, you lost energy? How long do you have till you pass away?" 2 days. So come over to bury me." I replied. "I know I'm joking, but I'm pretty worried now." Max said with worry on her face. "Why are you so tired?" "I don't know. The party maybe. I partied hard." I replied jokingly. Max was confused. "The party last Sunday?" "Yeah." I replied casually. "But it's Friday?" Max said with confusion. I smiled tiredly and said, "Oh, it's Friday already?" I paused briefly and chuckled. The last time I slept was Tuesday. I can't believe it's already Friday. Max looked at me with suspicion and asked, "Did you do speed or cocaine? Or is it both? Stop messing around. Are you coming or not?" I asked. Can I take a few days to think about it?" Max tried to avoid answering, but I said, "If you don't come here, then Pepper, my dad, Frankie and I will go to New York, and we will all crash on your couch." "No!" Max yelled anxiously. "Fine, I'll go to stupid LA." She added. "Are you happy now?" "Very." I replied lazily with a smirk on my face. Inside the lab, the experiments I have been conducting have finally produced some result. God, this took me an entire week. My full focus for an entire week. I mumbled annoyedly as I read the results on the screen. Robin replied with a flat tone, but there was a trace of disdain in her words. "You have created something that will help the entire human race, but you're dissatisfied because it took you a week to do that?" "Yeah." I replied casually, which made Robin lose interest in continuing the conversation. I chuckled as I read the data on the pill I had made. Needing an escape from reality, first I watched the Friar in Season 1 anime in my memory, and then I started working on the alchemist's pill recipes I received in the gacha. The work was extremely hard to do considering that most of the materials in the recipes were something out of this world, and needing special energy to create it. First was the detoxification pill recipe, ranked number 5 on the list. If I had all of the conditions satisfied, the pills could detoxify even the deadliest poison on this earth. However, as I needed to create the pills myself and substituting the ingredients with similar chemical formula, the effect was greatly lowered. I ate one of them, and it tasted like strawberries. "Robin, take note," I said as I swallowed the pill. Robin replied with concern, "Sir, I have to warn you about the dangers of experimenting with unknown drugs." Shaking my head dismissively, I replied, "And again I will reply, chill down, Robin. You saw me eat hundreds of those in the last week. I'm still alive, ain't I? The drugs don't really do anything to me. Maybe my body is too clean?" I recorded the effects after a while. I monitored everything I could after eating that. From my blood, brain activity, nerves, organs, and the drug didn't change anything at all. Did I develop some resistance to it? I mumbled out loud as I rubbed my chin. "Perhaps you need a little rest before you continue, sir. May I suggest watching the new Harry Potter film with your friends?" Robin chimed. Miss Enid just bought the DVD, and she planned for a movie-watching party in her house. I shook my head and said, "I have already watched it. Let's get back to work. See if we can derive something from it." General POV. Back to Thursday. Jay and Gloria arrived at Phil and Claire's house. "Hola, hola." Gloria entered fabulously before hugging Claire. "We're here." Jay greeted loudly. Haley, Grandpa's here. He shouted up the stairs. Claire was flustered and said, Don't call her like that. She'll notice you're coming here to talk to her. I still don't know why you can't do it. Or Mitchell and Cam. They are more suitable for doing this than me. Jay asked with frustration. We tried. None of us succeed. She hasn't come out of her room for days now. Phil said worriedly. Honestly, the room is starting to smell, so I'm not that excited to try again. Gloria asked worriedly, did she have her heart broken? Alex walked by and said, well, something broke. And it's my nose. Can't we just call Ed and make them make up with each other? Jay asked. Phil, Gloria, and Claire admonished him at the same time, are you crazy? What? It's just an idea. Jay shrinked back and defended himself. While the family was talking, Luke was watching the TV while bouncing a rubber ball up and down in the living room. He glanced at the adults with some anger in his face. And then he ran to the backyard. Luke's commentary. It's unfair. Why do all of us have to stop talking to Edward? He's my friend too. Haley is being selfish. I don't like this. Commentary ends. Friday. In Edward's villa by the seaside. Pepper and Ted were discussing Edward together in the living room with a face full of worry. He still hasn't come out of his lab? Pepper asked. It has been days. Even his ex has turned up concerned from her initial amok. He only came out to get Vader or get something to eat. I tried to talk to him multiple times, but I got nothing. Ted shared with some exasperation. Well, he did reply to whatever we asked. Are we being too presumptuous right now? He might just have puberty mood swings. Pepper said. I want to give him some space, but right now, we really need him. Why? Ted asked with confusion. Pepper smiled wryly and said, the president is coming here to meet him. I'm sorry. What? Ted asked in shock. Edward suddenly walked out of his lab, his hair was scuffy, and his eyes were strained. He walked straight to Pepper, who exclaimed, My God, have you been homeless for the past few days? Pepper, good timing. Here, eat this. Edward suddenly gave a pill to Pepper. Startled, Pepper took a step back before Edward could feed him the pill. What is this for? Gee, get that off my lips. Ted separated Edward before he could pry Pepper's lip open and push the pill into his mouth. What are you doing, Ed? Have you gone mad? I'll call Dr. Linda now. Frankie took out her phone and started dialing. Robin, cut all the calls. Edward commanded, so Robin had no choice but to do it. Edward turned to his dad and threw the pill into his open mouth skillfully, while his dad's hands were busy holding him back. Kuherka Ted choked and accidentally swallowed the pills. What did you feed me? He asked with widened, fearful eyes. Edward watched Ted with intrigue, only realizing his dad's horrified look after a few seconds. He rolled his eyes and said, Don't spit it out. That cost me $1 million. It's the most potent one I will ever make. What? Ted asked with disbelief when a black tear rolled down his eyes. Pepper was horrified. Oh my God, he's killing his own dad. And as witnesses, you guys will be next. Edward turned to Pepper and said maniacally. As Pepper and Frankie panicked, Edward burst into laughter and said, That's just a detox pill. Well, it's actually a cleansing pill, but it does detox you a bit. What the hell are you talking about? Pepper asked with disbelief. Just wait 10 minutes. Edward smirked. The minutes passed by quickly. Ted suddenly clutched his chest and he dropped to his knees. I can't breathe. He gasped for air. Frankie ran towards him, begging as she turned to Edward, Call 911. He needs a doctor. Don't worry about it. Edward dismissed her worries casually. Pepper grabbed Edward's shoulder roughly and said, Edward, that's your dad. Your father.
He just needs to puke and he'll be fine.
Edward was still being casual.
Ted's eyes almost lost his light.
He looked upwards to Edward and said, "Don't worry, son. Just know, I will never blame you." Suddenly, his gag reflex kicked in, and he started gagging. Blurg! A dark sludge came out of his mouth in a slow manner, almost suffocating him in the process. Ted could finally breathe after it passed. "What the hell is that?" Frankie asked. Her calm temperament had shattered completely.
Edward squatted down and poked the sludge with a pencil.
"Oof, tar. You must smoke a lot before Dad."
"Tar what?" Ted asked as he breathed shakily. "Oh my God, it's coming out again." He gagged and stood up immediately before running to the toilet.
Edward raised both of his hands up in the air, closing his eyes as he enjoyed the feeling of satisfaction.
You're not insane?" Pepper asked with disbelief.
Edward scoffed and turned towards him. "Of course not.
I have already tested the medicine before. It's perfectly safe." Pepper finally breathed in relief.
And as he opened his mouth to talk, Edward shot another pill from his fingers, and it entered Pepper's throat instantly. Pepper gulped instinctively, and his eyes shook as he turned to Edward.
"Oh, by the way, you will need to stay at the toilet for a while. It came out on the other end too." Edward smirked mischievously. "You devil."
Pepper rushed to the nearest bathroom he could find. Edward danced slightly, moving his hand as if he was conducting an orchestra before going back to his lab again.
"Robin, I forgot to ask, did anyone conduct the lab testing yet for the medicine's formulas?" Edward asked.
"Yes, sir,"
Robin replied.
"Although people are still searching for who's responsible for them, some lab testing has been done, and some medicines are in productions."
Chapter 252, Uphill Battle. Edward POV. Saturday morning. Villa by the seaside.
Yawning, I made my way to the dining table, bringing the sandwich I had prepared for me and my guests. My hair was disheveled, and my outfit was far from refined, just a simple tank top and boxer shorts. As I placed the plates in front of the seats, Enid's excited voice rang out.
"Come on. Hurry up and eat. I can't wait anymore."
"I'm too excited for our first hike together."
In contrast, Jenna's expression was one of disdain, her commitment to the outing clearly wavering. "I'm backing out. I don't want to sweat early in the morning."
Enid quickly interjected, cutting her off.
"Oh no you don't. Alex already can't come for whatever reason. Elsa and Jacob have a date, Phineas and Billy have a tutoring lesson. Wait. If you back out, that means I will go on the hike with Edward alone like a date? You can leave." Jenna's tone shifted to a teasing one as she interrupted, "I'm not going to leave now."
I choked on the sandwich, and promptly grabbed the nearby water.
After downing it, I turned to Enid and Jenna and asked, "Can someone explain to me, why are there suddenly plans to go on a hike?"
When I woke up this morning, Enid and Jenna were actually at my house, already ready with their outfit, some packaged food for the picnic, and were beaming brightly in front of my bedroom door. I didn't even know what happened and I was already dragged out of my room.
Meow. Vader hopped on my lap and licked my finger, wanting a bite to eat too.
I gave her some bacon and waited for the girl's answer.
Enid and Jenna looked confused. Jenna asked me back, "You're the one who planned it yesterday?" "You don't know?" "I did?" I was confused. Was I so out of it that I didn't remember? I thought inwardly. "Yeah. Your dad called my house, telling me the plan." Enid explained. "So I invited everyone in the group chat on your behalf." Ah. I finally understood the situation. I wanted to get mad, but then I realized that I could use a break, so I said, "All right. Where are we going?" Dad and Pepper were so traumatized after yesterday's event that they couldn't bear to see me, mostly from embarrassment rather than fear. They spent almost 3 hours clutching to the toilet because of my actions. However, after it was done, even their skin was a bit glossy.
It worked very well for my dad considering his skin was previously a bit yellowish because of his liver problem.
Just outside the city.
Jenna replied with an excited smile.
I nodded and said, I'm bringing Vader too. Also, I walked to the living room couch suddenly.
The girls turned their head as they followed my figure, and then widened their eyes as I suddenly kicked the drunken girl sleeping on my couch.
Wake up, Maggie. We're going on a hike.
I woke her up mercilessly.
Ow. Maggie whined sobbingly as she fell onto the floor. 5 more minutes. She begged. Go get ready now. I ordered. Miss, don't think I don't see you hiding there, you're going on the hike too.
I turned to Vanessa, who tried to hide from me after waking up from the shout.
Damn it.
She cursed, but she accepted her fate. Last night, both Maggie and her came to my place after leaving a club, in which she met her ex-boyfriend Zach there. Both of them were quite wasted, so company security picked them up, and Maggie insisted on being sent here instead of their own place. They got ready in 20 minutes, all of us wearing fitness clothes, and I drove us to the hill in a black SUV. Before leaving, I also cooked a few more food for the picnic, and brought a mat with me too. I carried most of the stuff inside my bag, and also I held a leash for Vader as we climbed the barren hill together. The hike was short, barely 20 minutes to reach the top, and unchallenging, for me. Maggie shrieked while sweating heavily, bending slightly to support her body by putting her hand on her knee.
Vanessa laid down flat on the ground, not having the energy to move.
Enid and Jenna were fine, and they were enjoying the food I brought. Vader ran around the spot in excitement, and I kept an eye on her in case there were predators here. She didn't even have a claw to defend herself if anything happened.
Vader didn't go far and rushed back towards me after being startled by a fox's noise.
Her reaction made me feel helpless.
Should I create a mechanical claw for her? Or just go the ultimate way and create iron armor for her?
She won't have claws, but she can shoot beams from her paw.
That is enough to ensure her safety, right? I thought secretly as I amused myself at the concept of an iron cat. Well, literally a cat. Not Felicia Hardy kind of iron cat. Too bad I didn't know how to make the armor.
I picked Vader up to ease her before walking to Vanessa and Maggie.
Well, this is sure to happen if you keep going clubbing for 5 days straight.
Maggie held her finger up in order to talk, but her panting breath made it hard for her to retort back. She gave up soon after and kept catching her breath. I turned to Vanessa and shook my head disapprovingly. Aren't you a dancer? Why is your stamina so weak? With a tiny, barely audible whisper, stuttering her words as she did, shut up.
Please pass me a sandwich. I smirked. If you can get to the picnic basket, you can take it.
But if you're late, don't blame us if there's none left for you.
Vanessa stood up abruptly and scolded me, demon. Be kinder. You look kind, but you're an asshole.
Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a couple of muscle soreness relief pills and gave it to the two girls.
Then, I gave Vanessa extra medicine. What's this? She asked curiously. Anti-dependency pill for your drug problem. I replied casually.
Locking myself in my lab, I worked hard finding ways to bring the alchemist's formulas to life. It was hard to do considering that I lacked the raw materials. I could get more. My action of releasing the formulas made it impossible to do so without the authorities becoming alert since they were monitoring it to find out who the doctor was. My plan was foiled by my own short-sightedness. Well, not really. I just had to run simulations instead. Vanessa's jaw dropped in disbelief and she was speechless for a while. I don't have a drug problem, she retorted with an incredulous high-pitched voice. I chuckled and walked to Enid and Jenna. Jenna yawned and said, Ed, are you the most wanted doctor? What is it? Dr. Samaritan. The human experiment doctor? The strange doctor? Time traveler doctor. A bit stunned, I didn't show my reaction on my face and played along. Okay enough. I shot a disdainful look at Jenna, making her giggle. Enid's eyes lit up and joined in. It must be you. No wonder you've been so busy this week.
That's not me, I replied casually. Or else I would already be caught by the FBI or CIA now. Maybe even by Interpol. I would be locked in a dark room, never to see the day again. I joked.
A few days ago, someone released over 100 medicines formulas to the world. Every single pharmaceutical company in the world received that medicine formula. At first, people were skeptical, but some foreign country had created the formula, which turned out to be legit.
Enid laughed and teased excitedly, like, we need to keep it a secret, or... I rolled my eyes and said, I'm not that guy. You know me. Yeah.
There's no way you're going to do that, without making millions from it.
Enid cackled.
If you did that just to make the world better, maybe the rapture will happen.
Jenna added. Both Jenna and Enid laughed at the same time.
I laughed too, but then I gave both of them a knuckle sandwich. Although the formulas were precious, it was built based on previous medicine studies, which meant that if someone were to release it, they would have to answer a lot of things such as where did they find it, which party did he stole and improve it from, which meant a lot of lawsuits needed to be cleared. It was too troublesome, so that someone just released it everywhere in the world, hoping that it would reach the person who needed them earlier.
Also, that someone was drunk maybe when he decided to do it, who knew?
He certainly didn't think far enough at that time, and unknowingly caused a price crash in the pharmaceutical industry, which meant cheaper medicines for the public, but the companies were furious though. Enid suddenly shouted from the top of the hill, Edward sucks.
What?
I laughed flabbergasted as Enid turned towards me with a smirking expression.
Jenna joined in too, Edward sucks. Vanessa and Maggie also did the same thing.
So I stood up and said, okay, I got the message.
Let's go home. No. Let me rest a little bit more.
Maggie widened her eyes and begged.
I grinned evilly and said, I suck, remember? No. You're awesome, don't leave me here, I haven't eaten any yet. Maggie screamed as I packed up the picnic stuffs. After the short picnic, we went back to my house as I wanted to work out in the gym.
The hike didn't really challenge me, therefore I started working out next after sending my friends back to their place. Well, Enid insisted on staying, so I had to call her mother to pick her up.
Currently, she's pouting with me, and doesn't want to speak to me again.
But as soon as I got home, she texted me asking about another topic. Vanessa and Maggie looked at me with disbelief as they saw I was doing the ladder pull-up without my shirt. Their eyes were glued towards me, which made me a bit self-aware. But I kept doing the strenuous exercises, which took over 2 hours to complete. Then, I started practicing my swordplay. Maggie was flabbergasted and said, Ed, why are you working out so hard? I missed a couple of days, so I have to cover for them. I replied casually, sweat dripping down my chin. Vanessa hesitated and said, hey, you want to ask me something? I interjected knowingly. Vanessa nodded and said, you want to have your comeback now? I interjected again. Maggie rolled her eyes at me and said to Vanessa, don't give him the satisfaction of cutting into your words. Speak clearly. Or else you will be annoyed by him. Vanessa nodded in understanding and said after pausing a while, I kinda wanna know, what are your plans with me? What should I do first? I stopped my swordplay practice and looked at her directly. I have a few plans, but seeing your stamina today, I have to get you a trainer. You need to increase your fitness level. Vanessa nodded, her eyes glinting with determination, and also some deep-seated anger. I laughed and said, you're mad because people are supporting Zach, but they are putting you down online? Isn't that unfair? He's the one who cheated, but she's bearing the brunt of the breakup. Maggie crossed her arms and defended Vanessa. It's a common thing. People will support the more popular one. I replied casually, making Vanessa exclaim in disbelief. This isn't the era where girls back up girls yet. Otherwise, Zach won't be scot-free like right now. Yet? Maggie caught my word, but she didn't think much of it. How fast can I, Vanessa asked meekly. I looked at her up and down, making her blush and fidget as I did.
I replied with a deadpan expression, maybe a month? That's just for exercising and vocal training.
I'm reaching out for a dance teacher Ilya Kim to help you with the dance choreography. When she comes here, you can start practicing.
I can already sing. Did you forget High School Musical? Vanessa asked incredulously. I didn't forget. Especially Sneaker Night. That song haunts me sometimes.
It also made your music career fall in tatters.
I teased, which made Vanessa embarrassed, and Maggie giggled. Yeah, that was awful. Maggie said. Hey! Vanessa retorted.
I continued with a knowing look, I know you're frustrated with the whole thing. But believe me, Zach will surely regret it.
That's what you want, right? Vanessa beamed up and nodded, yes. All right. Now drop to the floor and give me 200. I ordered. 200? Vanessa and Maggie exclaimed with disbelief. I'm just joking. You'll die if you do more than 10. Maggie, you'll join her.
I mocked Vanessa, igniting the competitive spirit inside her.
Then, after she did 3 push-ups, she couldn't do it anymore.
Maggie could still do it, but she only got to the 6th.
Disappointing. And you grow up on a ranch,
I said while narrowing my eyes at Maggie. My dad came home from work at 7 in the evening, and I made dinner for the 4 of us. It was curry, in which they all love it greatly, despite it being a little bit spicy.
While sitting at the dining table, my dad said, Ed, you know what'll happen tomorrow, don't you? I waved my hand dismissively as I wiped my mouth with a napkin. Yeah. I know. I'll go to the company before he comes. Who'll come? Maggie asked nosily.
My dad smirked and said, the president.
Maggie scoffed and said, as if. It's the truth. My dad added, which made Maggie doubtful. Oh right. Do you know who Pepper got to work on the movie? My dad tried to create conversation again as I didn't say anything. Who? I asked, intrigued. Also, what movie? I was confused. Let me check the notes. I forgot the movie name.
My dad took out a small notebook from his pants.
Ah, the 90 Days Love Countdown.
I dropped my glass filled with water, and it fell to the floor, crashing it into pieces.
Maggie flinched in shock as she was sitting next to me. Vanessa and my dad turned towards me with surprise in their faces. Why is he making that movie?
I was flustered and stammered, a sight which all of them felt refreshing to see. I grabbed the napkin to wipe down my wet pants as I waited for the answer.
I'll grab the mop. Maggie stood up and went to the kitchen to help clean up the broken glass. Confused, my dad said carefully, weren't you the one who came up with the idea? No, yes, but I've never told him about it. I asked, my voice became a bit higher as I was agitated. Ah, Pepper heard it from Cam and Mitch. My dad replied casually.
Then he added, Pepper got the director Judd Apatow to join in on the project.
Pepper is so excited that he even gave an interview to the reporters to announce the project.
Despite my dad mentioning an expert director, which allowed movies like Superbad, 40 Years Old Virgin, and even Anchorman to come to life, I couldn't calm myself down.
Edward, is something wrong? I thought you'd be excited. My dad asked with concern. Vanessa asked suddenly, trying to help the mood, is there a heroine for the movie yet? 'Cause you have a veteran actress right here. Or. Maggie rushed from the kitchen immediately, you have an aspiring actress right here. Shut it.
I clamped her lips with my finger as I stood up from the dining table.
I need to call Pepper. Sorry, Dad, but can you please clean up? Don't worry about it. My dad replied casually.
Under the stares of the girls, I rushed to my room to call Pepper. But as I held my phone in my hand, I hesitated, and instead, I called a different number.
Are you free right now? I asked after the initial greeting.
The stoic voice on the other side of the call replied, "I'm watching TV, so I'm free."
Mrs. Henderson asked knowingly, "Is there something you need?" "Yeah. I need some advice," I said. Mrs. Henderson paused for a while before she replied, "Sure." I talked to her for an hour before I decided to call Pepper. "Oh hi, have you heard the news yet?" Pepper asked excitedly. I replied, "Yeah. I have." "Now that you have gotten a director, who did you hire as a scriptwriter?" After talking with Mrs. Henderson, I decided to not halt the progress of the movie. What if her advice to me was to let it happen, and maybe I could see the situation from a third-person viewpoint? It'll help me with my current situation. Pepper was stunned and said, "Wait." I waited for a while, and heard Pepper's murmuring through the phone. He was talking with someone, asking the name of the scriptwriter. Pepper said, "It is quite risky, but I decided to go with a new writer, Miss Paige Swanson." "I'm sorry. Paige Swanson?" I was taken aback when I heard the name. Pepper tried to convince me she didn't have a good track record yet. I only met her on Wednesday for an interview. I don't know why, but I felt that she needed this, and I can trust her with it. I'll introduce you guys later. Robin, pull up Paige Swanson's pic. I asked Robin while still on the call with Pepper. She's pretty. So that's a plus. Pepper teased. I turned to the laptop and looked at the picture Robin had loaded. It is her. I was shocked internally. Paige Swanson looked like an adult McKenna Grace, which made me realize where I know her from. A former child genius who went to college at the age of 10, and also the childhood friend of another former child genius, Dr. Sheldon Cooper. Peps. I'll leave you to handle the movie production, I said. Pepper gasped and said, "A person with OCD relinquished control? Did therapy help, or are you still depressed from your breakup?" "Maybe both." "What's the movie budget?" I asked. Pepper chuckled and teased, "It will be big if you want Ryan Gosling." He continued casually after hearing me laugh, "Romantic comedies don't really have a big budget. We'll have the figure after completing the rough storyline and finding out how many people we need for the movie. If all goes well, we can release it near Valentine's Day next year." "Alright, then when I come to the company tomorrow, we can discuss the storyline with the writer," I said. Pepper laughed. "Don't have any ideas to hit on her. From what I've seen, she's not that easy to trick." "When did I ever trick someone into falling in love with me? They'll fall even when I don't want them to," I said cockily. Pepper laughed and said excitedly, "He's back. Finally, you're back to normal." Brooding and all wasn't really my character," I joked. "Also Peps, I need to ask you a favor." "What is it?" "You want me to hire another pretty girl?" Pepper joked. "Kinda. Can you contact Missy Cooper for me? I met her before in Texas. She has a high EQ level, I mean, extremely high. So I wanted to ask her for her opinion, for the movie. And this doesn't have anything to do with the fact that she's lovely or pretty?" Pepper asked after thinking for a while. "Not at the moment," I replied with a chuckle. Pepper breathed in relief and asked, "When did you want her here?" "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Pepper was shocked. I continued, "You can send a jet to pick her up. She's not doing anything anyway, so she'll love to spend a few days of vacation in Hollywood. You can invite her mother too, and she can come here to visit Sheldon. It's not that hard to do, but right now, I'm thinking you have an ulterior motive, so I'm not sure if I should do it," Pepper said jokingly. I rolled my eyes and said, "I don't have any ulterior motives." "Well, maybe to bother Sheldon, but I don't really have anything else." Well, nothing I could say to Pepper anyway. Chapter 253, Visitors, Part 1. General POV. Immediately after Edward finished the call with Pepper, Missy Cooper and Mary Cooper were invited by the company's representative to come to LA.
After receiving the call, Mary Sheldon's mother, a 50-year-old devout Christian who worked at the church, hesitated for a while. She turned to Missy Cooper, a 29-year-old woman, with brunette hair that fell on her shoulder, a model-like figure and a charming appearance.
Missy.
The good Lord has answered my prayers and sent us the most wonderful news, Mary Cooper said, her voice dripping with that familiar southern charm. Missy Cooper looked up from her Cosmo magazine, a delicate eyebrow raised.
"Mum, what in tarnation has you all in a tizzy?" she asked, her own Texan twang evident. "You remember Sheldon's young friend, that singin' fella?"
Mary said as she made her way over to the small dining table where Missy sat.
"Well, he's gone and invited us both out to California. Can you believe it, darlin'? Eddie? You mean a world star. He's not just a singing fella, Mom." Missy chuckled. "If only I was 14 years younger, I might just have to try my luck." Mary held Missy's hand gently and said, "This is why I kept praying for you, dear." Missy was speechless for a second. "Now Missy, don't you be gettin' any funny ideas.
That young man's got his sights set on bigger things than you old Southern belles." She paused, then her face lit up. "But can you imagine, the two of us, goin' out to California? Seein' the sights, maybe even one of them wax museums. All free of charge. Oh Lordy, I can hardly believe it." Missy grinned. "Well, what are we waitin' for, Mama? When do we leave?" She was already mentally packing her bags. "Hold your horses there, darlin'," Mary said, raising a hand. "There's one more thing. Edward wants you to come visit his company while we're out there." "Can you believe it? You?" Mary was a bit suspicious as she looked at Missy. Missy tilted her head with confusion, not understanding Edward's motives. "His company? Well shoot, I don't see why not. Maybe I can sweet-talk him into givin' me a backstage pass or two." Missy just shrugged, not thinking much of it. Mary smiled softly and held Missy's hand. "All right, sounds good to me. Say, should we invite Cece too? You know that girl's just plumb crazy about him." Mary's enthusiasm dampened a bit as she remembered. "Oh no, honey, Cece's been grounded by her daddy. No fun trips for my rebellious grandbaby." She sighed, then perked back up. "But you go on and ask Georgie if he'd like to join us. The more the merrier, I always say. There's no way Georgie would let her go. But I'll try to see if he wakes up on the right side of the bed this morning." Missy replied sweetly. They confirmed their decision to come to LA early in the morning. By then, the jet had already arrived there to pick them up. Mary kept gasping and exclaiming as they flew in luxury, while Missy quickly adapted herself to the rich people's lifestyle. A few hours before Mary and Missy's touchdown, chaos erupted at Los Angeles International Airport as the President of the United States made a surprise, unannounced arrival, sending the gathered media into a frenzy. The motorcade pulled up to the curb, and immediately the air was filled with the clamor of shouting reporters and the blinding flashes of cameras. Secret Service agents moved with choreographed precision, shielding the president as he walked to one of the black SUVs. His appearance spotted by the media wasn't by accident, as he planned for it to happen. "Calm down, everyone. I'd be glad to answer your question," the president said, his voice stern yet whimsical as he raised a hand to quell the onslaught of questions. "As I mentioned, this is a private matter that I need to attend to. However, I understand your curiosity, so let me say this: I am here to meet with the renowned entertainer, inventor, and a valuable asset to the country, Mr. Edward Newgate." A hush fell over the crowd of reporters as they processed the president's words. Then, the questions began to flow once more, with reporters shouting over one another. "Mr. President, can you elaborate on the nature of this meeting with Mr. Newgate? Are you here to discuss some official government business with Mr. Newgate? What prompted this surprise visit to meet with the famous singer?" The president held up his hand again, silencing the din. "I appreciate your interest, but I'm afraid I can't discuss the details at this time." He paused, sensing the continued tension in the air. "However, I can say this: I'm here to have an important conversation, one that I hope will lead to a resolution and perhaps even an apology." "An apology?" A reporter asked with interest. The president smiled and said, "Let's just say, Mr. Newgate is a victim of the country's mismanagement, and on behalf of the government, I'm going to meet him to deliver a well-deserved apology to him." After a moment, another reporter shouted out, "Come on, Mr. President. Can you provide any more details? What exactly does this apology pertain to?" The reporter's tone was insistent, bordering on confrontational. Secret services had to step in to protect the president. The crowd of journalists erupted into a chorus of agreement, voices rising in a clamor of questions and demands. "Yes, what was the government's mismanagement that harmed Mr. Newgate?" one called out. "The public deserves to know the full story here," another reporter exclaimed. "This could be a major scandal, we need more information." The president held up his hand again, but the din was harder to quell this time. The reporters were not willing to let the issue go so easily. It was as if a shark-infested water was thrown a bucket of blood. The reporters were in full frenzy. And it was the reaction the president hoped for. "I understand your desire for answers," the president said, his tone firm. "But I'm afraid I cannot provide any more details at this time. This is a sensitive, personal matter that I must discuss privately with Mr. Newgate first." He paused, surveying the agitated faces of the journalists. "I give you my word that I will share more information when appropriate. But for now, I must insist on discretion. The details of this situation are complex, and I need to handle it delicately." The reporters continued to shout questions, unwilling to back down. It was clear they sensed a major story brewing, and they were determined to extract as much information as possible from the president before he slipped away. Edward POV. Pepper, Harvey, and I watched the news together in the CEO's office, our eyes glued to the screen as the president's words echoed through the room. Almost all of the media's attention was focused on the matter, even the company's building was currently surrounded. "Eddie, can you believe it?" Pepper asked, his voice tinged with nervousness and excitement. I nodded, a slight impression on my face. "He's good." "You caught it too, huh?" Harvey turned to me and chuckled. Pepper looked confused. "What on earth are you two gabbing about?" I leaned back in my chair, a thoughtful expression crossing my features. "His strategy," I explained. "By exposing his intention through the media and not directly to me, he allowed me to see his sincerity, and also gave me a little time to process what's happening." Harvey nodded in agreement. "Exactly. By doing so, he's put you in a bit of a vulnerable position. You'll be confused, maybe even a bit more impressionable when you meet with him. Maybe he'll want to discuss the agreement again," Harvey continued, "or maybe he'll just want to get you to view him in a positive light. Anyway, since he used the media to show that he's taking accountability for his actions, not only is he creating a good impression of himself on you, but also on the members of the public. They'd see him as someone who's unlike the other politicians, maybe even painting his image as an honest and sincere man." He paused, a thoughtful look crossing his face. "It's a good political move, I'll give him that." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk as I considered Harvey's analysis. The president had certainly played this situation shrewdly, using the media to set the stage for our impending meeting. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of respect for his calculated approach. And I was thoroughly impressed by it because of that kind of strategy to manipulate the public. That was from the Lex Luthor skill I had shared with him. Even the action of him coming here himself was based on that particular skill set. It was like, I'm facing myself. Which made me quite excited for the meeting. "Well," I said, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth, "I suppose I'd better brace myself. It seems the president has a few tricks up his sleeve." I played it off as I didn't want to get Pepper into a full-blown panic mode. Pepper nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We shouldn't jump to conclusions about his intentions. Perhaps this is a sincere effort to make amends for past wrongs." Harvey acknowledged his perspective with a slight nod. "Fair enough. I may have been a bit too quick to assume the worst." "Exactly," I replied. "Harvey, want to bet his next move is?" Harvey smirked and said, "I accept." You go first. It's quite possible for him to try to meet me on a more neutral ground. He'd put pressure on you with the reporters at first, maybe letting me stew a little bit. Then, he can flip my expectations later on.
I think before Harvey could say anything, a ringing sound distracted him.
Pepper suddenly received a call at the time. As he picked it up and listened to it, his eyes widened as he looked at me.
The president's meeting the senator first, so he'll be a little behind schedule. See?
I chuckled.
Harvey breathed in relief and chuckled, thank God I haven't said anything yet. Otherwise I'd be so embarrassed. I laughed as I glanced at Harvey.
Then, I stood up from the sofa, we still have time.
I'm going to go check on the gaming department.
Pepper said nervously, really?
Are you sure you don't want to just stay here?
I pointed at Pepper as I glanced at Harvey.
See? Stewing. I said mockingly. Pepper was exasperated and Harvey laughed. Go have a massage or something. I chuckled as I said to Pepper. That's not a bad idea.
I'll sit on the massage chair until it's over. Pepper said tiredly. It had been only 5 short months since the company's founding, yet in that time, it had grown exponentially, now boasting a remarkable 1,200 employees across its 5 core departments. My footsteps echoed as I made my way towards the gaming division, nodding occasionally to the dedicated workers I passed.
James, not taking the day off?
I jokingly asked a team leader as he walked past by me busily flipping through his documents. James looked up and smiled, well, even the boss is here, so I'm not going to stay home.
It's a Sunday. Don't work for too long.
Or your wife will be lonely.
I joked. She's here too on the 4th floor. She's working at legal. James chuckled.
Finally, I arrived at the game division. This relatively new, yet rapidly expanding area was the second largest within Entertain, overseen by a talented team managing an impressive lineup of mobile gaming titles. The office was vibrant, with oddly shaped chairs, and a unique workplace for all those involved. There were also 10 gaming rooms inside the office for our beta testers, all of which were full today. Flappy Birds 2, The Addictive Avian Odyssey, was awaiting its highly anticipated launch, while the company's take on the League of Legends phenomenon, simply dubbed LOL game, was in production and nearing release.
Classics like Subway Surfer, Angry Birds, and Temple Run also fell under the gaming department's purview.
Beyond the gaming hub, the company's structure was equally impressive.
The entertainment department was split between music and movie production, with a dedicated streaming division as a subsidiary branch.
And of course, there was the tourism department, which was my family's business. I didn't disturb the beta tester, and quickly shushed the Indian game developer standing nearby. His eyes glittered when I entered the room, and he almost disturbed the beta tester's concentration. Sir, we're almost done with the beta testing.
It's all right, Danny. I'm not here for that.
Where's Choi?
I asked. She's at the pantry, I think.
Her latest obsession is trying to diet by eating 5 small meals a day. Ah, at least it's better than her juice cleanse era.
I responded.
Danny nodded in agreement. That was a nightmare for all of us here.
Not to you though, sir. She won't even raise her voice at you. I kinda wish she did.
I smiled wryly. Or at the very least, she can talk normally around me.
Up.
Pa, the Korean-American girl, who was also the vice head of the department, rushed towards me after acting exaggeratedly. Dropping her food on the floor, covering her mouth as she gasps, and mumbling to herself for a few times, monologuing. I couldn't hear all of what she said as she mumbled it very quietly. I only heard the words, thinking, appearing, handsome, fate. But that was enough for her to shudder from.
Nanyo bodai orayo. I'm younger than you, I retorted quickly. She grabbed my arm and hugged it as she said using a fake cute voice, why are you here? Did you miss me? Son, Hiya. How is the game so far? I asked her casually after calming myself down.
She was the type if you played along with her antics, there would be no end to it. I couldn't help but feel a hint of amusement as Sun-hee rushed towards me, especially her face, which looked uncannily like the renowned Korean actress, Yoo-in, from my previous world. Her skin was flawless even though she only applied light makeup, her straight brown hair falling perfectly to her shoulders. The large pearl earring and ruby red lips only served to heighten the resemblance.
We can just release it. Everything is Wanbi-akaji perfect.
She replied with a mixture of two languages while holding a thumbs up at me, a sentence which could be translated as near perfect.
What's wrong with it? I asked. Bug problem?
I coded the game with the help of Robin, so I didn't think there were any bugs.
Sun-hee smirked and said, "It's not perfect because Appa isn't in it."
That's going to make it 41 champions.
I laughed.
Danny exclaimed, "Oh man.
I can't keep watching this."
Sun-hee, stop being Delulu.
Game division.
All nerds. That term was brought by me to the team when I first met Sun-hee for the first time. Despite being frivolous, Sun-hee was a top graduate of Stanford, and has been working with giant conglomerates, Microsoft and AT&T.
Why did she choose to resign her job there and work at my company instead?
It was mainly for two reasons. She saw the future of the company, and she was also obsessed with me. Not in a sexual or trying to have a relationship with me kind of obsession, but like a fan worshipping an idol kinda obsession. I talked with the two for a while until one of the beta testers came out of the room in order to go to the toilet. He saw me, and immediately after, he kneeled on the ground, lowering his head to the floor as he worshipped me.
All hail New G, the creator of the best game of the century. Well, I wasn't the one who created it. I just improved it. I chuckled.
The gamer who goes by the nickname, Potato Couch, slowly gets up from the ground as he struggled with it because of his bad knee.
Nevertheless.
You're our Lord and Savior. Oh, my stomach hurts.
Got to go.
He held his stomach as he rushed to the nearby toilet. In the meeting room, Sun-hee had completely changed into her professional mode, and together with Danny, we discussed the possibility of holding the game premiere as the game was basically completed. If we used the company's full capability by borrowing people from the other departments, we could hold the launch celebration on Wednesday. I already got in contact with the Moscone Hall representative down in San Francisco. We need to book it now because Oracle Open World also wanted to use that location for their conference.
Sure. Book it now. I'm free that day. I replied casually.
Sun-hee smiled and said with awe, as expected of my Appa. He holds the biggest deciding power inside the whole company.
You don't even care if the location is out of budget, don't you? Is there a factor of budget? I completely forgot about that.
I smiled playfully.
Sun-hee gave me a thumbs up again, while Danny exclaimed in amazement, "Wow. So this is what rich people are like." Sun-hee suddenly glared at Danny and said, "Hey. Appa wasn't born a rich person.
This is all coming from his hard work.
Do you understand? And also the lottery. Don't forget that."
I made trouble for myself. Sun-hee turned towards me with disbelief. "Appa.
I was defending your honor. I'm not Zuko. You don't need to defend it." I laughed as I stood up from the meeting table. Discuss this with the two CEOs. Marketing is their specialty. I'm only appearing as a guest.
I don't want to do more work for the launch.
Appa. Do you think we can have a performance there? Or better yet, a song made just for the game? If we can do that, the conference event will be even more epic. I stopped and turned to Sun-hee. Sure. I can do that.
But, we're going to need someone with a powerful voice to do it. And maybe a short video of our champions to make the music video. It's fine if you don't finish it before the conference.
Sun-hee grinned and said, "We can do that. We just need to kidnap a few animators from the movie department." Danny showed pity with his eyes, knowing the unlucky fate of the animators after being targeted by Sun-hee. Chapter 254, Visitor, Part 2. Edward POV. The rhythmic thud of a basketball echoed across the empty gym.
Walking slowly to the source of the sound, I saw President Obama throwing a ball into a hoop while wearing his suit.
This was like a fever dream I had, only this time, it was real.
"Oh, Mr. Newgate. You're here.
Mind if I call you Edward?"
He greeted me cheerfully, pointing his finger at me in a casual manner as he grabbed the bouncing ball. Smirking internally, I replied with a smiling face, "I don't mind.
I'll keep calling you President. Anything would sound weird to me."
He tried to break boundaries by acting familiar, which was a great way for him to make way for the apology, but I built it back up.
It didn't deter him, however, as he threw the ball at me. Fancy a game? For an ordinary kid, I know, that's inaccurate.
Playing basketball with the president is the dream of the majority of the citizens of the country. It was supposed to make me feel awe with the situation, even provoking my patriotic spirit. I was silent as I processed the situation, just for a few seconds.
It would have worked if I didn't know what he was doing. However, to be fair, it did work a little bit at the moment.
"Sure," I agreed and started bouncing the ball on the ground. He took off his suit, gently placed it on the chair nearby, and folded his sleeves before re-entering the court.
"I have to warn you. I have a lot of experience playing the game before.
I played it once with my neighbor," I said with a straight face as I bounced the ball with my left hand and right, alternating them as I faced off with the president.
Pff, he chuckled and lowered his head, which allowed me to throw the ball into the net from the three-pointer line. "That's awesome."
He admired the shot greatly and was excited.
"Are you sure you only played it once?"
"Yeah,
but I'm also a quarterback, so throwing is my thing,"
I replied casually as I threw the ball to him. We played for a few rounds before he broached the topic. However, it was different from the topic I had in mind. He said, "Edward, do you like Percy Jackson books?"
Although confused, I answered, "Yeah, why?"
He smiled and said, "It must be hard for you to see the story getting butchered in the adaptation." Agent Smith had reported my hobbies and complaints to the president, it seemed.
"I do like the books. But I got to say, it seems like you have ulterior motives while bringing that up," I said jokingly while hinting at him to get to the point.
He smiled slyly and said, "Listen to this.
Both of my daughters love the books too. And they are pretty disappointed with the same thing you are. As a father, I couldn't let that happen. I don't want to make them sad." I scoffed internally and played along. "Oh, so what do you do?"
I dribbled the ball casually, but didn't throw it into the net yet, pretending that the 47-year-old man could give me a challenge.
"Personally? I didn't do anything. But I have asked some nice people to talk with the producers and the scriptwriter of the film," he replied in a casual manner.
After some discussion about our worries, they, regretfully, dropped the production of the movie, giving the rights back to Rick Riordan.
Flashback.
Inside a dark confined space, both the producer and scriptwriter of the story, which had just entered the initial stage of production, were chained to metal chairs and their heads were covered with a black cloth. Horrified, the duo shrieked loudly, trying to call for help.
"Anyone out there?" The producer shouted, "If this is a prank, it's not funny."
Agent Smith slowly walked out of the shadow and turned the table light. Two agents stood behind the duo and yanked the black cloth, making them squint their eyes in agony as the harsh light was pointed to their faces.
"Ah. Who are you guys?"
the producer asked.
"What we are is not important.
What's important right now is," Agent Smith took out a file and scattered some printed images on the table, containing evidence of several crimes the producer had committed.
"How are you going to get out of here alive?"
Agent Smith turned to the scriptwriter as the producer was flabbergasted. "For you, we don't really have anything against you, so just be obedient and it'll all be over soon." The scriptwriter nodded hurriedly, fear evident in his expression.
Flashback ends. Dumbfounded, I watched as the president snatched the ball from me.
He dribbled it briefly before shooting and scoring a neat basket. As the ball swished through the net, he turned to me with a smile. "So, I think your movie studio could try to negotiate with Mr. Riordan to get those rights," he hinted.
I returned the smile.
That's really fortunate news, I replied, and began dribbling the ball again. Although I was tempted to ask him directly about his intentions, his indirect manner of speaking made me realize he wanted me to work for the movie rights myself, rather than simply handing them to me. This way, Hollywood wouldn't misconstrue my studio as a gangster operation willing to blackmail and force people to relinquish their rights, or whatever else they did to the producers. We sat down on the court after he grew too tired to continue playing. While opening a bottle of water, he expressed tiredly, "Young people have too much energy.
I can't keep up anymore." I grinned and said, "I'm also shocked. I didn't think you had it in you." He chuckled as he heard my remark.
Wiping his sweat with a clean towel, he said, "You think that I'm only here today to change your mind about the agreement?"
I nodded in reply.
He smiled kindly, "You're guarded against me, and I don't blame you. I don't want to lie to you either, so I'll just be honest. It was part of my aim to come here and try to change your mind. I even have information that could help me in the negotiations." By being upfront, he placed us on equal footing, no longer speaking as the president, but as himself.
"What do you mean by was?" I asked, confused. "What made you change your mind?"
He smiled wryly and said, "I won't share the details, as it's a matter of national security." Slowly, he got up from the floor and said, "All I want to do today is apologize to you." Suddenly, he bowed down to apologize, which startled me. I jumped up from the court to stop him. "You don't have to do this." "No, I had to do this," he said sternly. "The government itself has betrayed your trust in the country. I have no excuses to give you." "Please stop," I said anxiously. He straightened his back and continued, "Before coming here, I planned to discuss this as an adult. But as we played basketball, I realized I had greatly misjudged the situation. You're only a kid, despite your height. You're only 3 years older than my daughter. And I wanted to put the weight of responsibility on you, to make you change your mind. I am ashamed of myself. Seriously, you don't have to do this." I tried to stop him again. Scheming and manipulation, I had anticipated all of that, but he disarmed me with the truth. He placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "It's fine. I've said what I wanted to say. I hope you can forgive me, Edward." "Yeah, fine. I forgive you," I replied hurriedly. He smiled and patted my biceps as he said casually, "Good. Now, I'm hungry. Let's go eat some lunch. I hope you don't mind that my daughters are joining us. They're your biggest fans, so I couldn't say no when they asked to come." I was speechless by his turn of attitude, and I sighed with disbelief after that. The whole thing wasn't a negotiation, it was just the introduction. And despite my efforts, he did manage to break down the boundaries between us, which I admired a bit. While at lunch, I learned a few things about the president's current state in the political arena, and felt a bit guilty about it. He made a lot of enemies after I implanted the suggestion to help the people inside his brain. He earned the support of the members of the public, but not the authority figures in the country. As I listened to words that came out of his daughter's mouth, not getting it directly from him, I made another decision that interfered with his destiny. Without anyone noticing, I used Fern's protection spell on him. It was to make myself feel better, however, little did I know that he was going to need the protection spell soon. They finally left. I sighed after I ushered the president and his family out of the company building. Pepper's eyes were still glittering with excitement after he was gone, while Harvey mulled the entire interaction with her eyes closed. Pepper smacked my bicep with a rolled-up paper. "You played basketball with the president?" His voice was high-pitched, and he asked with excitement. "Ow!" I exclaimed slowly before I said, "It's just basketball." Pepper was flabbergasted and said, "Don't you realize what just happened? That's the freaking president." I shrugged nonchalantly. "I'd rather play with Scarlett." "Playing her ball?" Pepper was confused. I stopped and looked at him before muttering with disbelief, "How did you know that?" Pepper was speechless. Harvey slowly opened her eyes and grabbed my arm. "Ed, we need to talk." I already know what you're going to say, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, as long as they give us more benefits, I'm fine with continuing with the agreement. Now if you'll excuse me, I don't want to miss out on the friends reunion I had set up. Harvey broke into a smile and gave me a thumbs up. You really does have a knack of making people's difficult prepared speech goes to waste. I smirked and said, that's because you made it too easy for me to do it. Well, putting aside Harvey's persuasion tactics, I could still see the potential benefits of cooperating with the government on this whole matter. Public pressure was another factor. Although the president didn't say anything specific in his interview after he left, sharp-nosed reporters would still find a way to figure out the whole incident. Also, now that I had demonstrated my ability to pull the rug out from under them, those who held me in contempt would likely think twice about using me as a chess piece. As I was leaving the room, I couldn't help but remember a song. Harvey and Pepper were still within earshot as I rapped.
I'll be playing basketball with the president, dunking on his delegates. Then I compliment him on his political etiquette. Toss a couple million in the air just for the heck of it, but keep the 5s, 20s, 10s, and bins completely separate. Yeah, I'll be in a whole new tax bracket. We in recession, but let me take a crack at it.
Stop! Pepper shouted as one of my legs was outside the door. I turned to him with confusion. What? Explain that. He demanded excitedly. Harvey also joined in. Yeah, Ed. Did you just rap? Maybe. I replied with a smirk. Seriously. Got to go. I'll see you guys later. I hurriedly left the office. Wait. Does that song have a name? Pepper asked again. I glanced at them again and replied casually, Billionaire. The title is Billionaire. General POV. Pepper and Harvey looked at each other after Edward left the office. Harvey couldn't help but chuckle. What did it even mean? I can't even remember what he said now. She burst into laughter a few times. Pepper chimed, Oh. You too? I thought it was just me. Nowadays, I really need a written down lyric to even understand that type of song. But you don't have any problems with show tunes. Also, that's a bit racist. Harvey said with mocking contempt. Pepper groaned and went to sit at his table again. Down in the lower floors, Paige Swanson, the new scriptwriter, was holed up in a meeting room by herself. Her wild, curly hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had her glasses perched on her nose as she typed away on the computer. Paige looked like your typical worn-out writer. She was wearing an oversized checkered t-shirt that hung loosely on her frame, and had barely any makeup on her face. Dark circles were starting to form under her eyes from all the long hours she'd been putting in. Suddenly, Paige's concentration was broken by a knock at the door. Thinking it might be the company big shot she was supposed to be meeting, she whipped her head around eagerly. Excuse me, I'm looking for the scriptwriter for the new movie. Is that you? In sauntered Missy Cooper, all dolled up in a fitted, knee-length dress with a bold cherry blossom print in shades of red, pink, and black. She had on a pair of strappy black high heels that elongated her legs as she approached Paige confidently. Paige's eyes went wide as she recognized the woman. Missy Cooper, she called out. Using a sickly sweet tone, Missy replied, Yup, that's me dash, but then she did a total double take and her tone changed. Wait a second, Paige Swanson? Missy! Paige practically shrieked, jumping up to give her old friend a big hug. It's been forever. Missy gushed, using a super affectionate tone. Over 15 years. Paige gushed back. How've you been? Hang on, what are you doing here in Texas? And at this company of all places? They caught up for a while, with Missy excitedly talking to Paige about her trip. As she listened to Missy's words, Paige's initial excitement slowly started to somber. Ha! Paige exclaimed to herself, her brow furrowing slightly. What? Missy asked, confusion evident on her face. And nothing. Paige hesitated for a bit. Then, both of them heard a knock coming from the door. Edward POV. Hello. I greeted as I walked into the room. Missy jumped out of her chair and rushed to give me a hug. Oh, Edward.
Thank you very much. Mom and I really enjoy the beach house.
As I was busy this afternoon, the driver drove them straight to the place where they were staying. Mary went to check up on Sheldon, and Missy came to the company after settling down.
I'm glad you like it, I replied as Missy stood by my side. I turned to Paige and offered a handshake. Hi. It's the first time we met.
I'm Edward, but I'm sure you already know me.
Paige Swanson. Paige greeted me with a solemn look.
I was confused, so I asked, "What's wrong?"
You look like you want to ask me something. I do.
Paige hesitated. Missy placed her hand on her hip as she stood beside me. Just ask him. He's not the type to get mad if you ask him a question like Sheldon.
Sheldon. Paige scoffed. Did he tell you to do this? To hire me?
She asked carefully, despite the anger visible on her expression.
Did I only get the job because I know the people you know? Realizing that Missy was flown out here for a meeting today, Paige easily connected the dots. I chuckled and said, I don't even know you were hired until yesterday. Paige was stunned for a bit and she shrinks back. So, is this all a coincidence? It seems very unlikely. Nope. Not a coincidence.
I did flew Missy out here for you guys to meet. I wanted to see a tearful reunion, but I was too late, I confessed while chuckling.
Paige was confused and Missy chuckled. Missy looked at me admonishingly and asked, the tour is still free, right?
Yeah, I replied casually. Missy grabbed my cheek lightly and said, good. 'Cause I can't wait to go around Los Angeles and maybe meet some star. You have a star right in front of you, I said with disbelief.
Missy placed her elbow on my shoulder and said, oh, somebody jealous? Paige was still confused. Wait. I'm sorry, but can I get an explanation, please? I looked at her and nodded slightly, sure. I have some beef with Sheldon, so I went to visit his mother during my tour in Texas. We hit it off, and I learned about you too.
Like Sheldon, I also have an eidetic memory, so I remembered who you are when I saw your resume.
Mary and Missy told me a lot about Sheldon's embarrassing past, you know. I told him about you in a passing exchange. I don't think he'll still remember it, Missy interjected. Paige asked, what did you say about me?
I said I missed you when Mom showed him your picture.
That's all, Missy replied.
And then she joked, you don't have to make sense of what he's doing.
He's rich. Rich people are always different from us ordinary people. I nodded in agreement, that's true.
Paige seemed to process everything, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding.
I see. So this was all just your little scheme to orchestrate a reunion between old friends? She glanced between Missy and myself, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. I am confused as to feel manipulated or grateful right now. Just be grateful,
Missy said as she went to hug Paige again.
I didn't think that I could ever meet you again in my life. I thought you had a busy job like Sheldon, hiding in a research lab somewhere.
Paige smacked her lips and said, I had quit science a long time before.
Missy, although I'm glad that we're meeting again, can it wait?
I only have a meeting with Mr. Newgate from 4 to 6.
Missy turned to me and asked, where are you going later?
To bother Sheldon with you and your mother. But I guess I can postpone that if you're staying here a couple more days.
I replied.
Missy grabbed Paige's hand and said, good.
You can bother Sheldon, and I can catch up with Paige. You can show me around LA, right, Paige?
'Cause I don't want to walk around with my mother.
Maybe you can show me where the party.
Paige interrupted Missy quickly as she felt embarrassed. I only moved here a couple of months ago. And I was working the whole time, so I haven't had the chance to look around yet. Both of them looked at me and I rolled my eyes. I'm 14.
I can't even get into clubs. Ah! Missy exclaimed. That's true.
Chapter 255, Bad First Meeting.
Edward POV.
As Paige, Missy, and I sat together, with Missy at the head of the table and Paige and I faced off with each other, the conversation drifted to Paige's past encounters with Sheldon. Missy eagerly shared the details, describing how Paige had once punched Sheldon, his head dramatically hitting the floor. Paige smiled reminiscently as she tapped her pen on the table, though it was clear she was anxious to get down to business. She punched him, like Thok, and his head hit the floor, like cat hump, Missy narrated with animated hand gestures. I grinned and said, "That's really awesome. I wish I could see that." Turning to Paige, I added, "Missy, I guess we need to continue later." Paige here is almost drilling a hole on the table as she waits. "Oh. Sorry," Missy said apologetically, giving Paige a light touch. Paige smiled bitterly and said, It's not that I don't want to talk, but I'm getting paid here. So I want to do my job first." "It's fine." "It's fine," I dismissed her worries, but Paige's expression darkened. "Well, it's fine for you," she blurted out, a hint of hostility in her voice. Raising an eyebrow, I wondered what she meant. Maybe she felt pressured because this work would be tied to her career in the business, but me, the haughty CEO, was insufferable and only wanted to talk. But I couldn't bring myself to care, so I said crassly, "All right. Let's focus on the work then. We'll talk about the movie." "Great. First, I am clear about the whole idea of the movie. But I also heard that you don't have a solution to the dilemma here. That's why we're bringing you in," I joked. "Well, we could have." Paige wanted to discuss, but I raised my hand quickly. "I need to stop you there. I don't want to hear the solution here. I mean, I'm not going to talk with you about that. You can ask the creative department for the ideas and feedback later, but for me, I couldn't hear the solution until it was finalized, and it made some sense." Paige grumbled a bit and pushed up her glasses. "I thought we're supposed to be brainstorming about that." I shook my head and shrugged. I have too much on my plate to be worrying about a movie's storyline. I literally had just had a meeting with the president. I'm sure you know about that. Missy raised her arms up excitedly like a student in a class. "I know. It's been all over the news." Paige was startled and asked, "Wait. Really?" I nodded to reply to her. She was in disbelief for a couple of seconds before she collected herself. "Fine then. But you know, a scriptwriter can only work on your ideas if she can actually listen to your ideas. To be honest, Paige, I can only give you the details of what I want. I can't help you with the storyline. But don't worry, the director will come in next week, so you'll be working closely with him, not me. We just need a rough draft for the meeting, not the complete story. The studio is also quite busy with our already ready series, and I don't want to increase their workload. This movie, we will decide if we're going to do it or not, after the script is done." Paige finally understood it, "So, if the script is bad, we won't go through with it." "No. A studio will usually hire a new writer, but I'll tell you this directly, if the script doesn't excite Pepper, the movie won't go on. I will not interfere at all if he wants to do this movie, but at the same time I also won't try to convince him if he doesn't want to do it." Missy scrunched her eyebrow and said, "Sounds like you don't really want to do this movie." I snapped my finger and pointed at her. "That's why I brought you here." High level of EQ. Missy was bashful and giggled, trying to act like she wasn't flattered. "Thank you. Also, what is EQ?" "Paige?" "Me?" I explained to Missy while Paige clicked her pen multiple times, ruminating about the matter. "All right. I accept that condition. But, you need to give me something to work with." She agreed to the challenge. "What did Pepper say to you?" I asked, trying to grab her notebook, but she pounced on the book suddenly and yanked it out of my hand. "Sorry, this is private." I held my arms up in surrender. "I understand." Missy grinned and said, "Must be something naughty in it she doesn't want you to see. Let me take a look at it later." Paige blushed and glared at Missy, and no. Missy gasped, she stammered. "It really is." She flipped the paper hurriedly. "Right." He said, Ryan Gosling needs to be there. He also told me about the curse and ethical dilemma. Pepper wants it to be romantic, set in New York." "New York?" I interrupted, then said, sorry.
Continue.
That's it, Paige said with a wry smile. That's all he gave me to work with.
Nothing about the characters and all?
I raised my eyebrow in astonishment before looking at Paige pitifully.
None, Paige replied. Missy said, if you have some drinks here, I think she's going to need it.
I can't drink alcohol while working, Paige started, but I cut her off. There's some beer in the fridge. Also, I think liquor is in the pantry.
You let your workers drink while they're working? Missy asked with disbelief and excitement. This is like a company a Texan wished for their whole life. Not during. We'll also have some guests here, so it was mainly for them, I clarified, leaning forward.
I wanted to get up, but Missy held my arm to stop me.
Let me go. I want to see it with my own eyes. I sat back down and said, sure.
Just walk straight on the right till you reach the end.
The pantry is there. Jumping from her seat, Missy excitedly walked away.
I watched her from behind and smirked, look at her all giddy.
Are you sure you aren't just looking at her butt? Paige asked me with a raised brow.
I turned towards her again, a little bit.
But who wouldn't?
She groaned in disgust and rolled her eyes. I casually said, let's discuss the main character first then.
You can build the story from around there.
Paige nodded and said, Pepper wants RG, so we know what he looks like.
But what does he do? His career path? In Good Luck Chuck, which has a similar premise. Good Luck Chuck has a similar premise? I should watch. No. You aren't 18 yet, so you can't watch the movie, Paige interrupted me. It's R-rated? I asked dubiously, to which Paige nodded.
She continued, he's a dentist there, so he wasn't really high profile. His life was quite ordinary until his friend convinced him to use his curse for good or bad. She blushed a little at the end. I'm very confused right now, I said while shaking my head. I thought about it a little and said, instead of ordinary, I want him to be high profile.
Are you sure?
That'll be a lot more difficult to steer, Paige said with some concern.
I smiled and said, a high-profile person in Hollywood. Maybe an actor? Anyway, the press will be all over him. I see. And you want him to be in a slump or at the height of his career? Top actor. A huge name in the industry. Skyrocketing career. Paige raised her eyebrow and said, like you?
I smirked and said, you can base it on me, yes. But made him become big in like 5 to 6 years instead of months like I do. Paige was speechless for a bit, but she wrote it down.
She accidentally blurted out, is he a huge douche like you too?
Her eyes widened after she realized what she had asked, but I answered her casually.
I guess? I'm not so sure about that. What do you think will work? I asked her back.
Breathing a sigh of relief, she mulled my question for a while.
An actor. Vanity is included there.
He shouldn't be stupid, quite capable, otherwise he wouldn't climb to the top. Or, if you're open to another character, we can have a supporting role. Someone that helped him plan his career.
An agent, or maybe relatives.
That sounds great.
I replied crassly, not really caring about it. See, you don't have anything to worry about.
Paige grumbled for a bit before continuing, I guess that's it for the main character.
I don't think you have anything else you want to add? That's absolutely correct.
I replied with a grin, making Paige even more annoyed. She grumbled whisperingly, you basically had every single character workshopped for in the other projects, but you're not even trying in this one. After she visited the set of Breaking Bad before, she was thoroughly impressed by the project, and everyone's feedback while working with me has been nothing but good remarks. It seemed that she was thoroughly disappointed in the meeting today. Missy returned with a couple bottles of wine with her. One clutched in her armpit, one in her left hand, and her right hand carried the glasses. You would not believe what kind of beer they have in here.
Lone Star beer. From Texas.
She stopped abruptly as she sensed the mood inside the meeting room wasn't that great.
It seems that I was gone for too long. We continued the discussion about the heroine of the movie.
Based on what Pepper said, the girl needs to know about the curse, and is working with him to break it. If the situation is that he's aware of the curse, maybe there's a scene at the beginning describing it. Sorry.
Do you have something to add to that, the hero-heroine?
Paige trailed off, but she came back to the topic quickly.
Wait. Does Pepper want a happy ending or a sad ending? I asked while leaning back on the chair.
It still hasn't been decided, Paige replied. I racked my brain for a while before saying, for the heroine, she must be kind, can play along with his sense of humor. A bit feisty that she'll call him out on his bullshit.
Is there an actress you have in mind? Missy asked with great interest. Maybe someone you have a crush on?
I don't care, but she needs to have chemistry with the main actor.
So someone like Emma Stone.
This is all great.
I can work with this. Paige muttered. Back to the ending.
I thought about it for a bit before saying, if he wants the happy ending, then, the curse is broken, and he realized that he had fallen in love with her, so they ended up together.
Missy chimed in, like a good movie should do.
I ignored her and said, but if it's a sad ending, the curse could break, but he lost her. Maybe because she's just doing it to help him, but was actually in love with someone else. Or they worked together to break the curse because the guy was the one in love with someone else.
Nope.
I surely don't want to see that kind of movie.
Unless they set it up from the beginning. But if they don't end up together, then what's the point of actually making it? Missy commented angrily. I looked at her with disbelief and said, why are you so invested? You don't even know the plot of the story. Yeah, but you fly me over here to become, an EQ consultant.
So I'm telling you my thoughts about that terrible ending now, Missy said huffingly. I chuckled for a bit, and we went on to discuss the movie for an hour more before the meeting ended. We mostly discussed the characters and setting, without going too deep in the plot.
The meeting about the plot was done by Pepper later that night instead of me. Honestly, I just went there to hang out.
In this movie, I plan to be the observer. Well, at least, that's what I plan to do. As we drove through the lively streets of Los Angeles in the convertible I borrowed from Pepper, the bustling nightlife was on full display.
The city was alive with energy.
Neon signs illuminated trendy bars and clubs, music spilled out onto the sidewalks, and groups of people strolled along the sidewalks, dressed to impress. Missy sat up excitedly at the top of the car, taking it all in.
"W-O-O," she shouted enthusiastically, her hair whipping in the breeze.
I was pretty sure that some paparazzis recognized me and snapped my picture with Missy in the car, but I wasn't concerned about the scandal. I glanced back at her through the rearview mirror, a bit surprised by her exuberance. My heart skipped a beat as she caught me staring and smiled at me.
"I didn't think you're a woo girl," I commented.
"That's just an excited woo," she clarified.
"Not a woo to hide that I'm not actually interesting."
Missy then sat back down next to me at a stop sign, sighing dejectedly. "This is not how I imagined my free trip to LA would be," she complained. I couldn't help but laugh at her change in mood.
"What else can you do?"
"Your mom wants to have a family dinner with Sheldon."
Missy nodded reluctantly.
"Even years later, everything is still about him," she snarked, her tone laced with some slight frustration.
Turning towards me, she said threateningly, "You won't rat me out about what I said, right?" I grinned mischievously, "And lose my leverage? Where's the fun in that?"
She scoffed, yet her lips were curling upward. Changing the subject, she asked jokingly, "So, do you have a brother or cousin that looks like you? He better be rich too, because now that I have already flown on a private plane, I don't think I can ride in the economy class seats anymore."
"Have you ever even gotten on a plane before?" I asked. Missy shrugged and said, "Nope, wait. I did once for Sheldon's graduation. But we only came to the college and went back immediately after. We were too poor to stay around." We laughed as we made our way to 2311 North Los Robles Avenue in Pasadena.
The familiar building, the familiar lobby, I was feeling quite nostalgic. Suddenly, we bumped into Penny in the lobby. She was wearing her tank top and shorts, looking comfortable as she was picking up her laundry. Her eyes widened as she saw me. Oh my God.
Edward. Hey Penny. I greeted casually. If she wasn't holding a basket, I was sure that she was going to give me a hug. Want some help? I asked. I got it. Penny giggled. She turned to Missy, and who's this? I'm Missy. Missy Cooper. Missy greeted Penny in a friendly manner. She's Sheldon's twin sister. I explained. Penny froze in shock and her eyes widened. Really?
And not one day goes by that I thank God we're not identical twins.
Missy jokes. Penny and I giggled.
We climbed the stairs together, and as we did, Penny asked, I'm sorry.
I have to know. Why is Sheldon's sister with you? You haven't gone to the guy's apartment yet? I thought you would have met Sheldon's mother by now. Oh. I just got home from work.
Penny was startled and started deflecting.
I remembered something and grinned. Really? Based on your expression, Penny, I don't think that's the case. There's something more here. I don't know what you're talking about. Penny stammered. Missy joined in, grinning. It seems like Edward is correct.
I don't have all the details yet, but I think something happened in that apartment.
That's why you're being all jittery. What? Penny was in disbelief. Seeing that you have a problem with intimacy, I guess that something happened between you and Leonard. It must be something you hadn't planned, so that's why you're avoiding him.
I rubbed my chin playfully, pretending to be a detective.
So, did you kiss Leonard?
Penny's jaw dropped and she said, That's amazing.
How did you guess that? Also, I have no problems with intimacy. Leonard, Sheldon's roommate? You're dating him? Missy asked.
Penny was in disbelief and rushed to climb the stairs as we were at our final steps.
Penny, why don't you join us? We're all having dinner together.
Missy invited Penny as she stood in front of her apartment door, which was directly opposite Sheldon's apartment door.
I'm okay. Thank you for the offer. And it was nice meeting you, Missy,
Penny said as she opened the door. But before she got in, she glanced at Missy and advised, Be careful with Howard.
The guys are nice, but sometimes they can be a bit too much. Missy was stunned, yet curious. Penny disappeared from our sight, and I went to the door. Missy wanted to knock, but I stopped her. There's something I want to try.
I knocked on the door 3 times with a try-knock pattern.
Sheldon opened the door with a smug look and asked, When did you learn about my signature knock? Missy smiled and said, Sheldon. Missy. Nice to see you. You can come in. Sheldon said. But you. Don't be silly, Shelley, let him in.
Mary scolded angrily from inside the house.
I was going to let him in, Mom. I just want to ask him a question before he can come inside.
Sheldon retorted, aggrieved, yet he still concurred and opened the door without any hassle.
He scoffed at me and went to sit at his work table, doing some work on his laptop. Something smells delicious, I said as I entered the apartment. Finally, I saw the missing wall in the apartment.
The right wall after you entered, where the TV was typically set up.
Oh, you're too kind. I'm making spaghetti with a hot dog cut up in it, Mary said sweetly. I smiled at her and said, Do you want some help? No. Sit down. Be comfortable. This won't take long.
Mary focused on cooking. Leonard walked into the living room and greeted me, Edward.
Nice to see you. Again, I'm very sorry for bringing Dr. Gabelhauser to your home. Water under the bridge.
I smiled at him as I accepted his gesture to shake hands with me.
Missy smiled and greeted, You must be Leonard, the kisser. Excuse me, WH what?
Leonard was startled. You must be Sheldon's sister.
He greeted Missy bashfully. I walked to the couch and sat casually on it. That's my spot, Sheldon said without turning back. I ignored him and watched Missy tease Leonard about Penny. He was excited and blushed for a bit, before he became determined and said, I am going to invite her to. Mrs. Cooper, can I? Just call me Mary, Leonard. You may. I'm curious to see the girl that managed to catch your eye too, Mary said teasingly. Move away from my spot. Sheldon turned to speak to me. No, I replied casually. He became increasingly agitated and walked slowly towards me while crossing his arms. Excuse me, but this is my apartment. Nana Mary. Sheldon's bullying me. I shouted to his mother immediately. Sheldon was taken aback and Mary scolded him, Shelley. Let him be. Sheldon whined, but Mom, he's sitting at my spot. This spot feels great, Nana. I spoke to Mary again, using a slightly louder volume to reach her. I think I'm going to sit here the entire night. Ah, I love it when you call me Nana. It made me feel like I have one more lovely grandson, Mary said sweetly. Mom. Sheldon tried to snap her out of her raw state. I'm your lovely son, and you're not supporting me. He's sitting at my spot. He's doing this on purpose to infuriate me. No. I'm not. I replied as I settled my ass into the seat, making Sheldon even more mad. That's a harsh accusation. Why would I come all the way over here, just to infuriate you? Why did you fly my mother and sister here if you're not trying to bother me? Sheldon asked accusatorily. We all have questions. Leonard and Penny entered the apartment at the time, and saw my argument with Sheldon. Missy was enjoying the whole thing and muttered, Go Edward. I replied to Sheldon's question, to be nice? Why, aren't you happy to see your mother? Sheldon replied, Of course I'm happy. Then, what's the problem with that exactly? Missy joined in. He had his luxurious jet pick up Mom. He even let us get settled into a nice beach house. At the very least, you can give him your spot for the night. Missy's right. Shelley, why don't you be a good host and help me set up the table? Mary joined in. But Sheldon was aggrieved. He glared at me before he pretended to smile and walked to the kitchen to try and convince his mother. Missy sat next to me and said, You're bad, you know that? I laughed and said, I'm sure that won't be the last of it. He'll badger me continuously tonight. I just need to make sure I don't crumble. That wraps up this part of What If Karmic Gacha System in Modern Family World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.